5 civilizations that collapsed at their peak. The first true empire in history, the Akkadian Empire. Around 2300 BCE, a man named Sargon of Akkad did something no one had ever done before. He unified independent city-states, Sumerian cities like Ur, Uruk, Lagash, and Kish, under one central rule. This was not just conquest. It was an empire. Sargon's domain stretched from the Persian Gulf through Mesopotamia to parts of modern Syria and Turkey. For the first time in human history, one army, one ruler, and one administrative system controlled millions. Power at its peak. At its height, the Akkadian Empire was militarily dominant, economically rich, and culturally revolutionary. What made it powerful? They had professional standing army, rare at the time, road systems for trade and communication, standardized weights, measures, and taxation. A common language, Akkadian, replacing Sumerian in government. Sargon and his successors ruled not just with force, but with bureaucracy, an innovation that later empires copied for millennia. The God King era. The empire reached its absolute peak under Naram-Sin, Sargon's grandson. He went further than any ruler before him. He declared himself king of the four corners of the world, proclaimed himself a god while alive. Monuments show him towering over enemies, wearing the horned helmet of divinity, something previously reserved only for gods. To many, Akkad seemed invincible, but that illusion did not last. The collapse begins when nature turned. Around 2200 BCE, disaster struck. A massive, long-term climate shift, known today as the 4.2 kilo-year event, hit Mesopotamia. The effects were devastating: severe drought, crop failures, starvation, and mass migrations. Cuneiform tablets described saying, "The fields produced no grain, the rivers did not flood." An empire built on agricultural surplus suddenly had nothing to feed its cities or armies. Rebellion, invasion, and chaos. As famine spread, provinces rebelled. Trade routes collapsed, and the central government lost control. Then came the Akkadians, mountain tribes from the Zagros region, who raided weakened cities, exploited the empire's instability, and overran Akkad's heartland. Later Mesopotamian texts described the Akkadian period as one of lawlessness, darkness, and cultural regression. Whether exaggerated or not, the message is clear. Akkad Empire fell hard. Vanished capital, lost empire. The city of Akkad has never been found. Once the heart of the world's first empire, it disappeared so completely that even its ruins are lost. By 2150 BCE, the Akkadian Empire was gone. City-states re-emerged. Power fragmented. The world returned to chaos. The classic Maya civilization. A civilization that mastered time. While much of the world struggled to read and write, the classic Maya were counting centuries. By 800 CE, the Maya civilization stretched across southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Hidden in dense jungle stood cities like Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, and Copan. Each city rose with towering limestone pyramids, carved stone monuments, stelae, and ball courts, palaces, and observatories. This was not a primitive society. This was one of the most scientifically advanced cultures on Earth. Peak brilliance. At their height, the Maya achieved feats centuries ahead of others. What made the Maya exceptional? Complex writing system, one of the few fully developed scripts in the ancient world. Advanced mathematics, including the concept of zero. Precise astronomy, tracking eclipses, Venus cycles, and solstices. Highly accurate calendars, predicting celestial events thousands of years in advance. Their rulers claimed divine authority, tying kingship directly to the movement of the heavens. To the Maya, time itself was sacred. Cities without kings of kings. Unlike empires ruled by a single emperor, Maya civilization was a network of independent city-states. Each city had its own king, a jah, its own army, its own alliances and rivalries. For centuries, this system worked. But it came at a cost. Constant warfare between cities drained resources, fueled political instability, and glorified war captives and ritual sacrifices. Victory sustained legitimacy. Defeat destroyed it. When the reigns failed, between 800 and 900 CE, something changed. Rain stopped coming. Modern climate studies show the Maya lowlands suffered multiple severe droughts, some lasting decades. The consequences: crop failures in maize-dependent cities, empty reservoirs, hunger in urban centers, and peasant revolts against elite rulers. The Maya had cleared vast forests to build cities and fuel lime plaster production, making drought even deadlier. The land could no longer recover. Collapse of faith and power. Maya kings ruled by claiming they could speak to the gods, control rain, and maintain cosmic balance. But as drought deepened, rituals failed, sacrifices failed, and calendars continued. But rain did not return. Steely inscriptions abruptly stop. Dates cease. Kings disappear from the record. When the gods stopped answering, so did the people. Cities abandoned, not destroyed. Unlike violent collapses, Maya cities were not burned. They were walked away from. Palaces left empty. Temples swallowed by jungle, and great plazas silent. People migrated north and toward the coasts. Maya culture did not vanish, it transformed. Millions of Maya descendants still live today. What died was the system. The Western Roman Empire, the world's greatest machine. At its height, Rome was not just a city or an empire. It was a system. By the early 4th century CE, the Western Roman Empire ruled Britain, Gaul, Hispania, North Africa, and Italy. Over 50 million people lived under Roman law. Rome built roads that still exist till today, aqueducts that defied gravity, cities with plumbing, public baths, and forums. From grain ships to tax records, everything was organized. Rome did not conquer chaos. It replaced it with order. Power at its peak. In the early 300 CE, Rome appeared unstoppable. What made Rome supreme? A professional standing army with discipline unmatched in the ancient world. A legal system that governed vast, diverse populations. A monetary economy that connected 3 continents. And bureaucracy capable of running an empire without a single emperor present. Rome did not just win wars. It made conquered peoples Roman. Citizenship spread. Latin spread. Roman identity became global. The cracks beneath the marble. But beneath the monuments, the system was rotting. Internal decay. Endless civil wars over the throne. Emperors made and killed by their own armies. Rome spent more time fighting itself than defending its borders. Power became unstable. Legitimacy collapsed. Barbarians at the gates and inside them. The Western Empire relied increasingly on barbarian mercenaries to defend its frontiers. Goths, Vandals, Franks, Suebi. They were not all enemies. Many served Rome. But loyalty shifted when Rome stopped paying. In 410 Common Era, the unthinkable happened. Rome was sacked by the Visigoths. For the first time in 800 years, the Eternal City fell. When the economy broke, Rome's economy depended on slave labor, constant conquest, and reliable grain from North Africa. When expansion stopped, slaves became scarce, taxes increased, coins were debased, and trade routes collapsed. Cities emptied, public services vanished. People fled to countryside estates under powerful landlords. Urban Rome faded into memory. The final fall, 476 Common Era. For 76 CE, a Germanic general named Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus. There was no epic battle, no last stand. The imperial crown was simply sent back to Constantinople. The Western Roman Empire ended not with a scream, but with a shrug. Rome did not die. It fragmented. Rome did not vanish overnight. Its ideas survived Roman law, Latin language, Christianity, architecture, and governance. But in the West, roads crumbled, cities shrank. Literacy declined, and central authority disappeared. Europe entered what later historians called the Dark Ages. Why Rome fell at its peak? Rome did not fall because of barbarians alone. It fell because power became unstable, wealth became unequal. The system became too complex to sustain, and the army chose kings instead of protecting borders. Rome collapsed under the weight of its own success. The Khmer Empire, Angkor, the city that should not have existed. Deep in the jungles of Southeast Asia, the Khmer Empire built something no medieval society should have been able to sustain. A city larger than London, larger than Paris, larger than any pre-industrial city on Earth. Its name was Angkor. At its height, Angkor was home to nearly 1 million people fed, watered, and governed by a system so vast it can still be seen from space. The Empire of Water. Angkor's power came from one thing: water control. The Khmer engineered a massive hydraulic system, giant reservoirs, barrages, canals stretching for miles, spillways, embankments, and moats. Supported armies, priests, and monumental construction. Water made Angkor rich, powerful, and possible. Divine kings and stone gods. Khmer rulers were not just kings. They were god kings, Devaraja. Each ruler tied his legitimacy to Hindu cosmology. Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument ever built, was not just a temple. It was a declaration of cosmic order, carved in stone. As long as water flowed and crops grew, the gods approved. The system begins to fail. By the 14th century, the climate turned against Angkor. Scientific evidence shows decades-long megadroughts and followed by extreme monsoon floods. Angkor's water system was brilliant, but too rigid. Canals cracked. Embankments collapsed. Sediment clogged reservoirs. A system designed for balance was overwhelmed by instability, war, trade, and a changing world. While Angkor struggled internally, Thai kingdoms like Ayutthaya rose to power. Repeated invasions weakened the empire, and coastal trade routes replaced inland dominance. The Khmer economy, built for land and water control, could not adapt to a maritime world. Power shifted away from Angkor, and it never returned. When faith changed, authority followed. As Theravada Buddhism spread, the idea of divine kingship weakened. Monumental temple building declined, and central authority eroded. Without god kings, there was no cosmic reason to maintain the system. Maintenance stopped. Infrastructure decayed. The city became unlivable. A capital left behind. By 1431 CE, Angkor was effectively abandoned. There was no apocalyptic destruction. No single final battle. The royal court moved south. The jungle returned. Stone temples remained. But the living city vanished. The Aztec Empire. The empire built on a lake. In the early 15th century, the Aztecs built one of the most extraordinary cities the world had ever seen. Tenochtitlan rose from Lake Texcoco, a city of stone, canals, bridges, and causeways. By 1500 CE, it rivaled Constantinople and Paris in size and beauty. Spanish witnesses later wrote, "It seemed like a dream, a city floating on water." This was not a primitive capital. It was an engineered miracle. Power at its absolute peak. By the time Moctezuma II ruled, the Aztec Empire dominated most of central Mexico. Millions of subjects and vast tribute networks. What made the Aztecs powerful? Chinampa agriculture, floating farms with unmatched productivity, sophisticated markets, and long-distance trade. Professional warrior classes and highly organized tribute and taxation system. Gold, cacao, feathers, textiles, wealth poured into Tenochtitlan daily. The empire was young. It was expanding. It was at its peak. An empire feared, not loved. Aztec power relied on terror as policy, required to provide captives, and publicly humiliated. Conquered cities were forced to pay tribute. Human sacrifice is deeply religious to the Aztecs, and it also served a political purpose. It reminded subject peoples who ruled them. Resentment spread quietly. The empire had many enemies waiting for a chance. The arrival from the sea. In 1519, that chance arrived. Hernán Cortés landed with about 500 soldiers, a handful of horses, and a few cannons. What he lacked in numbers, he gained in firearms and steel. Strategic alliances with Aztec enemies and interpreters who bridged worlds. Cortés did not conquer alone. He let the empire tear itself apart. Before battles decided anything, smallpox arrived. The Aztecs had no immunity. Within months, nobles died. Generals died, priests died, and the Emperor Cuitlahuac died. Entire neighborhoods vanished. Leadership collapsed. Society unraveled. Fear replaced ritual. The Siege of Tenochtitlan. In 1521, Spanish forces and their indigenous allies surrounded the city. Causeways were cut. Aqueducts destroyed. Food and fresh water ran out. The lake city became a trap. Starvation. Disease. Street by street fighting. After months of resistance, Tenochtitlan fell. The empire ended in fire and blood. A civilization erased almost everything. Temples were destroyed. Idols smashed. The city was rebuilt as Mexico City. Aztec codices were burned. Their gods were outlawed. Their history rewritten by conquerors. But not everything was lost. Language, traditions, and descendants survived. What disappeared was sovereignty. Why the Aztec Empire collapsed at its peak. The Aztecs fell because their empire was hated by its subjects. Disease shattered society before war decided anything. Technology gaps were decisive, and political isolation proved fatal. They were strongest when they fell, and still, it was not enough. When the world forgets, they were not weak. They were not primitive. They were not doomed from the beginning. They were the strongest societies on Earth at the exact moment they fell. Different continents, different centuries, the same ending. None of them fell because of a single enemy. They fell when systems stopped adapting, when beliefs hardened, and when power outgrew resilience. These are the 5 civilizations that collapsed at their peak. Follow us for more true stories that matters.